Welcome! This is Her Identity Project, a safe space for women to explore faith, self-discovery, and personal growth. Here we will journey together to become our best whole selves, spiritually, mentally, physically, and emotionally. It's time to let go of everything that is holding you back from becoming the woman God created you to be. If you're ready to reclaim your authentic self, stick around. I'm your host, Ashley Iduda, and this is Her Identity Project. Welcome, everyone. I am here with the fabulous Jenn Johnson, and I'm so excited to spend some time with you and to get to know you better. Thank you for coming on the show.
Yes, me too. Thank you so much.
Yes, absolutely. So I'm going to have you introduce yourself. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and your background?
Yeah, absolutely. So a little bit about myself. I am 45 years young. I
Love
live
it.
just outside of Columbus, Ohio. I live with my 10-year-old son and my husband. We just celebrated our second anniversary, so
Yay!
found my true love a little later in life. I love
Congrats.
that story
That's a
too.
big deal.
It
Yeah, that's
is. It really
amazing.
is.
Yes, we can talk about that more later. I love that.
Yeah, absolutely. So I am a women's coach. I have been coaching for, I guess, just about 6 years now. I
Okay.
started with a local for-profit organization. It's a leadership and emotional intelligence program. And as a graduate of
Good.
that program, I was invited to come back and coach. And so I spent a couple of years there coaching and then eventually transitioned into, like coaching full time. Then it was just kind of like a hobby. And one day I was just kind of had the realization like, my job is getting in the way of me doing the thing that I love the most. And so
Yes.
I, not immediately, but shortly thereafter, decided to make a total career transition and then ultimately ended up stepping into coaching. So I've been doing this full time for about 3 years now.
Okay.
I work with, it's so funny is I work with primarily one and two women, and this is just because this is who I attract. Like
Yes. Let
I
me
am
hear it.
all for girl power. So I'm like,
Woo!
I just love supporting women. And I noticed that there are two types of women that I really call forth. And so one of them is the real high achiever. They like have the job, they have the house, they have the, benchmark income, you know,
Yes.
they they have everything that you could want, right? That like looks really good on paper, but maybe they really um lack that work life, like that work home life balance. There we go. That's what I was
Okay.
trying to
Yeah,
say. Maybe
that
they're
is a
not.
struggle.
Absolutely. I
The
mean, that's a
struggle is
struggle
real.
for anyone.
I think
Yes.
so. Yes.
Yes. And so a lot of times women who are really high achievers in this way, and who I'm working with specifically, is they attach their self-worth to their achievements. So
Uh-huh.
I'm worthy if I get the raise. I'm worthy if I get the promotion. I'm worthy if I blow that special project out of the park, right? I'm worthy if I get the praise of my boss and my peers. And so there's so much attached to all of those results. And so it's like, yes, of course, celebrate all of those results, but
Right.
also celebrate you without them. Celebrate the person
Absolutely.
that you are without them, like the gifts that you bring to this world. And for most people, it's actually not your job. Those are not the gifts that you bring to this world. It's this thing that you do in this world.
Yeah, so I'm
So
going to stop you really quick because
go
I
for it.
love everything you're saying. And as you know, my show is really based on worthiness. I mean,
Yeah.
that's where I found myself being like, I want to go on this mission and I want to empower other women
Mhm.
because I think I was finding my worthiness in all the wrong places as well. And
Yes.
so it's so interesting when we can find our worthiness. Well, so I'm not going to define worthiness. I want you to do that. So I want you to
Mhm.
elaborate on, like, so if we're not finding worthiness from success and like climbing up the corporate ladder and like
Mhm.
making the money and like doing the things, or maybe it's roles, right? Some women
Right.
may be like, okay, well, I'm a mom, I'm a stay-at-home mom. So that was
Mhm.
my thing, was like who I was, my identity
Yes.
was in just my motherhood, like being a mom, because
Yep.
I stayed at home for so long. So tell me more about your thoughts on that. Like what
Sure.
should women be focusing on when they are the high achievers with worthiness? What do you tell them?
Yeah. Yeah. I think that it is more about, this is going to sound weird when I say this, but like who you be versus what you do.
Absolutely.
So the person that you are being, um, the conversations that you have with yourself when nobody else is around,
Yeah.
the conversations that you have with yourself when nobody is telling you that you're good. Are
Yes.
you telling you that you're good? Are you celebrating you for, yes, your achievements, because they're internal. It's internal validation versus external validation. So I think it's anytime you're reaching outside of yourself
Yeah.
for that validation. And it's not to say that validation doesn't matter, because it does.
It does.
It just can't be the main factor. It's you, right? It's the person that you are. It's your love for yourself.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And I feel called because, I'm a Christian. And so, like, my thought life is God created us. And so
Yeah.
we get our worth from Him. And so I think the important thing is like, we're not seeking external validation. It's like
Mhm.
at the end of the day, if He gave us the gifts, like, are we honoring Him by using them?
Yeah.
By
Yeah,
believing
absolutely.
in ourselves that like He made me perfect as I am, and that
Mhm.
I'm fully like confident and able to do the things that He
Yeah.
put in my heart to do. Because you spoke about, it's who, how do you say that? It's who we be.
Yeah,
It's who
it's who
we
we be.
are, right? And
Yeah.
not what we're doing. So, who's the second kind of like client that you call? You said there were two types of women.
Yeah. So the second type of woman, it's so funny. It's all tied to worthiness. The second type of woman is a woman that has these big goals and dreams and aspirations and these big desires, but the doubts that she has, the inner dialogue, the limiting beliefs, those conversations that she has with and by and about herself are the things that hold her back. Like, they're riddled with self-doubt. They're riddled with fear. And so they're these amazing, brilliant women who, as soon as they step fully into the gifts that they have, into their
Yes.
calling and just owning it, are going to make a massive impact that's just going to ripple, for years to
Woo!
come.
You're
Yeah. And I just
speaking
gave
like,
myself goosebumps.
you're giving me goosebumps. Yeah, you're giving yourself goosebumps. Yes. You're ministering to my heart because that's me. I was really plagued by self-doubt and fear. Really, it was
Mhm.
crippling. I was living in a mental prison for so long with all
Yeah.
of the limitations in my mind. And so thank you for that. That
Yeah. Yeah.
feels good to me. Now I'm like, yes.
Well,
So
and it's
go,
my story. I'm sorry, I don't mean to
no,
interrupt.
I want to hear about it.
It's me stepping fully into that because it's my story, right?
Is it?
Like, I don't know. Listen, I'd love to say that I came up with a saying and it wasn't me. I don't know who said it, but I heard it somewhere else. But they
Yeah.
say, God doesn't call the qualified, He qualifies the called. And
Yes.
so I certainly, six,
Preach.
7, 8 years ago, wasn't the person, that I am today, that's able
Yes.
to support the women that I do today. but it was that very specific calling was placed on my heart for a very specific reason. And so I became qualified as I followed my calling. And I began to really own my worthiness. I began to own the gifts that I bring to this world. I began to stop finding that worthiness or that validation outside of me and started creating it internally. And that's
Yeah.
not to say that that's every day, because it's not. Because there are days that, I will sit in bed and cry, and I'm just like, I
Yeah.
can't do this. And I'm just like, all the conversations are taking over, right?
Yes.
And they happen, and you get back up and you do it, or like my husband, he's so good with me.
Aw.
He will really just let me have my feelings,
Yeah.
let them move through me. And then, as it's kind of, as I'm releasing it, he'll be like, okay, let's go. You can do this because you actually are doing this. Like, you are
Yes.
actually doing this right now. So the story you
Absolutely.
have about I can't do that, that's actually
They're
not factual.
lies.
They're
Yeah.
lies. Like,
They're lies.
you are living proof that you can do this. I'm like, okay, let's go
Yes.
do it again.
I love that so much. I think that that is like the most pivotal thing is at the end of the day, just the belief that we actually can, right? And
Absolutely.
not only that we can, but if God puts that calling in your heart so
Mhm,
strong that
mhm.
that you must, like that you like have to do it, that there's
Yeah.
like no other option
Mhm.
because it's so painful to be that girl that is plagued by fear and not feeling good enough.
Yes.
You know, I would never want to go back to that. And I
Mhm.
think, like you said, I naturally will, like for a day or for a few
Sure.
hours. But I think there, and we'll talk about it later, but there's so many different tips and tricks I'm sure you can offer us that can help pull us out of that when we do get to that
Mhm,
place.
mhm.
Um, so I wanted to go back to your journey and invite you to go like just a little bit deeper.
Sure.
So, did you struggle with your worth or your identity in your journey?
Oh, 100%. I mean, I think I struggled with my worth and my identity for the first 35 years.
Too. Me
And
too.
and I would say that I really found my worth and identity in men. Like,
Mm,
if they love me, I
yeah.
am worthy of love. If
Aw.
they see me, I am worthy of being seen, right? Because there's a whole history of my life, right? Down to like being an infant and my biological father leaving me, right?
Wow.
And
Yeah.
being, a child of divorce multiple times over. My history was that men leave you. My history was that men couldn't love me because they always
Yes.
left me.
Yeah.
So if I found a man that loved me, then I was good, I was worthy, I was seen. That was my identity. So
Yeah.
much so that in my first marriage, and I'm not knocking him. He's a
Yeah.
great man. We were a product of our childhoods. We were a product of all of our stories and our journeys.
Yes.
And we were just two wounded people that came together. And that doesn't ever work, you know?
Yeah.
Um,
Thank you
and
for
so
sharing that. Thanks.
yeah,
I think that's it's important to be vulnerable because I think we all have our stories and they all are
absolutely.
rooted in feelings of not being loved or
Mm,
not feeling worthy. And so like
absolutely.
how many of us really have this like perfect childhood? I think
Right.
very few people like weren't really messed up
Right.
by
Right.
like what they experienced. And so that's been my experience as well.
Hmm.
I come from a background where family members like suffered with substance abuse and things like that. So I think the inconsistency is what I learned, that I
Yes.
never felt safe, that
Right.
I felt fearful and anxious in almost every situation because I never knew what to expect. And so
Mm-hmm.
now you fast forward, I'm 41, you fast forward and you go, I'm so sick of being scared all the time. That's my
Yes.
story. I was
Yes.
just so sick of feeling like this. Like, I
Yeah.
don't want to feel like this anymore. So yeah, thank you for giving me permission to like go deep too. So what advice would you give to someone who is like in the mental prison, struggling with all the things?
There's a few things that come up for me, and one of them is, just to relate to your story. Both of my parents are alcoholics, and
Okay.
my biological father was an alcoholic and was abusive to my mother, and that's why she left him.
Yeah.
And my sister's father, who raised me for a good chunk of my life, he was an alcoholic. I mean, I didn't know that then, but looking back at it now, I'm like, I can see that then. My mom, God bless her, is in recovery. She's been sober for several years. Like, she
Praise God. I'm glad to hear that.
absolutely,
I'm really glad to hear
absolutely. I'm so proud of her
that. Aw.
and
Yeah.
how hard she's worked,
Yeah.
because, you know, so I went to school for social work, and my focus was chemical dependency counseling. And we
Oh,
did an
wow.
exercise one time, and the exercise, and I can't remember exactly how it went, but basically it was, would you be willing to leave your home, leave your children, leave your job, leave everything that you know in life for 30 days if you knew that you could come back, healthy, something along those lines? And I remember thinking to my son, and I'm like, absolutely not. No, I would not leave my family. I would not leave my son for 30 days. There's no way it would happen. And, we move forward through this exercise, and he said, this is what people face when they choose to go to treatment.
Wow.
And then I thought of my mom that day that she chose, we're in Ohio, and she went to treatment in Florida, and she was gone for months.
Yeah.
And she chose her. I mean, talk about the epitome of worthiness, right?
Yeah.
Like, she chose her
Aw.
to the highest degree that you can, right? I mean, she gave up everything to go get better, to go choose her. And I'm just so proud of her for that. And something that's been really pivotal in my life. And so if there's anybody that's listening or watching here that can relate to this, is one thing I would say is get involved in ACA meetings or Al-Anon, or at any of those types of support group meetings. For me, Adult Children of Alcoholics was super supportive of me, because I needed to be around other adults that got what my childhood was like. And so the healing work that took place through that, I don't know that I could have done that anywhere else. And I've been doing personal development work for many years. And I got more, from a few months of being, going to ACA meetings than I did in all these years of personal development, because there's something that happens inside of those meetings that can't be replicated anywhere else.
So, hashtag me too.
Yeah.
My life. Oh my God. Like, I'm like,
Yeah.
thank you, Jesus. I can't believe he connected us. This is crazy.
It's so crazy.
So, like, I was not okay. And we were moving here. We moved an hour away. And my husband, like, he was like, okay, you need to go back to work and all the things. And I was like, sure, but like, I'm not okay. And I had known
Right.
for a few years that I was not okay. I think I needed to like process all the trauma. And so I had dabbled with counseling, but I didn't stick with it. And I just was struggling. And so he was really supportive, and he said, no problem, like, stay home and do whatever you need to do. So I threw
Mhm.
myself into trauma summits. And believe it or not, a girlfriend of mine that's a whole long story. I don't need to get into it, but she mailed me the yellow ACA
Oh,
book.
nice.
She
Yes.
knew that I had been struggling, and this crazy person she dated gave it to her as kind of like, F you, you need this. And
Yeah.
she was
Yeah.
like, need this. So she mailed it to me. And Jen, like when I opened the book and
Yes.
I read those, what are they called? Like
The laundry list and
yes,
all that. Yeah.
I could identify with everything in the
Yes.
laundry list, and I felt like so seen for the first time in my life, and all of the limiting beliefs and like all of the behavior and all of the stuff that caused all of the issues in my marriage, just everything that
Yeah.
I had been experiencing was in that book. And I was like, where has this been my whole life?
Right.
And I love that you brought that up. I love that you brought it up. Um, and like you said, the community is everything, because there's just no way to explain it, right? Because I
Right.
think the hardest part about alcoholism is you feel like they don't choose you. So it's
hmm
like, why can't they just choose me? So
Right.
I mean, I'm so happy that your mom did, you
Yeah.
know, she chose herself and she chose you. And I think for anyone listening, I mean, my mission is to empower women to be the healthiest versions of themselves, spiritually,
Yes.
mentally, emotionally, and physically, because that's when we're whole. And so, what a beautiful gift that your mom gave
Absolutely.
to herself and to you.
Yes.
And I thank God for all the synchronicity that led to me discovering that, because
Mhm.
I would not be where I am today without that book and that community. I wouldn't be there.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Wow. Was not expecting a
I
call
know.
to go down this route. Like, that's way too cool. It's
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
It truly just had such an impact because I think the thing was is it's like not that it makes anything okay. But what I did find is it allowed me a lot of grace,
Yeah.
not only for my mom, but for my biological father, who I only met one time. And so I never knew him my whole life. And he's since passed away. But
Wow.
it allowed me a lot of grace because, you know, it's real easy to point fingers at people who identify as addicts and alcoholics. And it's real easy to point fingers to the people who are on the side of the road begging for money or, you know, scrounging for needles. It's real easy to be judgmental and it's real easy to point a finger. But let me ask you this: would you do the same thing to somebody who had cancer? Would you do the
Yeah.
same thing to somebody who had heart disease? Would you do the same thing to somebody who had diabetes? No, but they're all diseases. It's just some
Exactly.
of them come with empathy and some of them come with judgment. And so being able to
Mm.
really submerge myself, not only in the program, but in the education behind it, and just discover, you know, just allow myself to have so much grace and forgiveness. And it's not to say that I'm not working through my own stuff still, because ask my mom,
Yes.
she'll tell you know, because I certainly am. I'm still working through my own stuff, and I
Yeah.
probably always will be. But it allowed me to have so much grace for myself, for the people around me that I love. And it assigned like all these stories, right? All these limiting beliefs. I'm like, oh, that's why. And it
Yes.
allowed me to assign the reason. And it's not to say that in that moment I could just let it go. But what I can do is say, okay, that's not true. That is that hurt little girl that just didn't
Yes.
feel seen. So it allows me to bring that limiting belief and tie it to something so that I can give it the truth, right? It's not my current
Exactly.
truth. It was the truth then, or it was the truth in this experience. And so I can tie them together and I don't have to carry it around. It's like the thought I have is I'm taking this limiting belief, which is a balloon, and I'm tying it to this rock, which is the story or the
Beautiful.
situation or the circumstance, and I can leave it there. And I don't have to
Wow.
take it with me.
Wow. So I just want you to say that one more time. So if our limiting belief is a balloon, then we can tie it to
Yeah, we can tie it to the
the why.
story that actually
This-
happened, right?
Yeah.
Um the circumstance that was our life, right? Like being in a household where, there were multiple failed marriages. So my limiting belief is that men will leave me. And
Right.
so I can take that limiting belief, I can tie it to the situation that actually happened, and I don't have to carry that around anymore because I happen to have an amazing husband that actually adores me. And I swear that God gave me a son as evidence that I am able to be loved by men. Because that
Aw.
little boy, whoo, he is my whole heart, and I know that I am his.
Girl. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Me too.
Yeah.
So funny. So my son is 10 years old as well.
I love it.
And he is the most penitent hearted. I had a preschool teacher use that word to describe him, and I had to like look it up. But he is so sensitive. And
Mhm.
I mean, he will look at me and he'll be like, Mommy, you need a hug. And he can
Aw.
just like feel
Yes.
the things and like give me what I need in the moment. And
Mhm.
they say that like a son is a mother's first true love. Have you ever
Mhm.
heard that
Mhm.
saying before? Oh
Yeah,
my
that Denzel Washington. It's a real, right? Denzel Washington says it, and I
God. Is
cry every
it? I
time.
don't know. It's yeah, I believe it. I'll take it.
Yeah.
Thank you, Denzel. What a blessing that you have
Right.
that reminder every day,
Yeah.
and,
Yeah.
and you can let all that go. I'm so
Mhm.
glad your husband came into your life.
Me
That's
too.
incredible. Oh,
Yeah.
I love that. Oh my gosh, I'm just loving all of this.
I know, I know. And I think that there's one thing too, if I may, that I would share because I feel like I
Please.
spoke to maybe a lot of people that were experiencing, alcoholism in their family, and that might not be true for everybody. I think that a second really tangible way to be able to rewrite those stories is
Yeah.
it's easy in the moment to sit there and say it but really ask yourself, is that actually true?
Yeah.
Am I actually ugly? Am I actually dumb? Am I actually not capable of doing this? And really allow yourself to sit with it because is that true? And the answer is a no, right?
No.
It feels so real in the moment, right? Don't fight it. Allow those feelings to move through you, because as we've kind of touched on, like those those feelings of fear, first of all, they're not of God, so they're not of you, right?
Amen.
And then
Yes.
secondly, there's some part of you that is so fearful that they're trying to protect you.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so, just recognizing like, okay, I'm not that person anymore. I am this person. And the person that I am today is smart enough and is beautiful and is capable of doing this. And just really challenging your thoughts on this. And the second, something else to kind of go along with that I really love to do is I love to build evidence. And so I have a box that sits on my nightstand. And it is from the several years that I was a part of this leadership program here in Ohio. And it's all the letters that were written to me by students, or all the gifts that were
Aw.
given to me, or all the little tokens and mementos. And I keep them there. And it's a reminder of the impact that I made in the lives of these people. And I have a spreadsheet where I write down all my client wins.
You do?
And I
Yeah.
do because
Yes.
some days I need to go back to that.
Yes, of course.
Some days I need
Yes.
that reminder. And, so it's my client wins, but they're my wins too, right? So
Of
like
course.
when I made more money in the first 3 months of 2024 than I made in all of 2023. That's my win, right?
Wow.
Like that's a
Yeah.
huge win. But
Yes.
also, so is the win that my client is quitting her teaching job at the end of the school year because her and her husband are launching their own business to help people who are blind, to help build their
Wow.
homes in a way that supports them, because sometimes it comes along with age, right? Sometimes it comes along with an accident. You don't always have the time to prepare for that. And so
Yeah.
they're dedicating their lives to helping these people. And that's so powerful. And I call that a win for me too, because it's a result of the work that her and I have done together. And so I
Yeah.
keep track of all, yeah. So keep track of
Yes.
that stuff so that on those days where you're just consumed with the stories, you can go back and read the truth. I think that that's really important.
I love that. I will start doing that. Yeah, you've inspired me to do that too. It's beautiful. It's really true. I attended a recent event with Tony Robbins. It's called
Mhm.
Unleash the Power Within. And like a breakthrough moment I had was he had us really meditate and think on moments where we have been successful, where we actually like have done the things that we're
Yeah,
convincing ourselves that we can't or haven't. And
right.
it was really powerful. I really did step away going, that's a lie because I
Yeah,
have done it and I can do it. And like
right.
you're saying, it's evidence that supports the truth. And the truth is that I can and I will, and
Yep.
it's possible. So, okay, I was really excited to talk to you about this because, I snooped around and I saw that you're doing retreats and everything, which, like,
Yeah,
when I hear about retreats, I'm just like, I'm going to go to a retreat. Like, that just sounds like everything to me. So, what is something that are your next steps in your business? Like
sure.
what are you doing next and what are you excited about?
Oh my gosh. I am excited about so much right now.
Yes.
I there's two things that I think I'm probably most excited about it. And you touched on one of them, and that's doing retreats. So I actually did one in October, and it was funny because it was actually never supposed to be a retreat. It was supposed to be a bunch of my girlfriends who were also entrepreneurs, and we were just going to get together and take some photos and hang out and, like work on our businesses. And then I had a friend of mine who was like, why don't you just run that as like a beta retreat? And I was like, oh, that's a great idea. And so that's what I was doing. And I wasn't even going to promote it. And I just happened to throw it out on social media. And in 24 hours, I had sold all but one spot. And
Wow.
then I sold the final spot, and then more people kept wanting to come, so I actually had to get a bigger space to do it. And then I ended up partnering with a friend of mine who is a chef, and she came in and
Oh, how
cooked
fun.
all this amazing food. And I brought in
Wow.
some, I have a friend who is a masseuse, and so she came in and did massages. And then, my mentor, she came in and did some breath work and some meditation with the ladies. And it was just such a powerful experience. And I just thought, oh, this is it. Like, I am here for this. And
Yes.
so literally one day I was just sitting down writing, and I created this program, and I'm launching it in January. It's going to be a whole year long. I'm so excited for it.
Whoa.
It is going to be a coaching program, but the pillars of the program are retreats.
Love
So,
it.
one of the big things with women, well, with really anybody, but specifically women, as we're juggling all of the things, is like,
Yes.
yes, we have these goals, but some of them feel so big. Like, I have a client who wants to hike the Appalachian Trail. And she's like, physically, I could not do this. And the idea of that feels so far away.
Yeah.
So what we're doing, and so it's easy to just give up on, right?
Sure.
And so what we're doing together is we're breaking it down. Okay, what do we need to do to get you from point A to point Z? What has to happen? And then we're breaking it all down into
Yes.
bite-sized pieces. And so that's what we're doing in this first retreat. And I have a whole bunch of other things up my sleeves, but we're creating the time and the space to connect in with what's important to us, why it's important to us, and breaking it down into manageable pieces. Because if you have a goal of losing 75 pounds, thinking about that, it takes a lot of time, and it takes a lot of commitment and focus. And it's so easy, especially with our health goals, to get kind of lost because you have to eat, right? And so it's so easy to lose sight of that goal because it feels so far away. But what about if we just focus on these 10, right?
Yes.
And then we celebrate those 10 and then we focus on the next 10, and then maybe it's just the next 5. But that's what we're doing in this first retreat, is taking all of our goals that we really, really want, but they feel so big and unattainable, and we're breaking them down into bite-sized pieces. Oh, like I said, along with a whole bunch of other stuff that I'm super excited about. And so that we're doing that in January. Then in June, we're going to come together, reset, recalibrate. Where do we need to, where do we really need to check back in here? Do we need to create a new goal that's attainable? Or
Right.
where do we need to double down because you're totally crushing it?
Oh,
And then
yeah.
yeah. And then in December, we're coming together to celebrate. So it's going to be 3 retreats over the course of the year. And then that whole year, they're doing coaching with me. So I'm going to be with them every
How
step of the
exciting.
way as they are working towards their goals. And so I literally created that in an afternoon of just writing. It just like all came to me, and I'm so excited for it. And next year, I really have a vision to do a big women's retreat in like Mexico, or
Yeah.
I don't know, someplace super tropical and dreamy. So those are the two, like that's kind of one, because it's, the retreats and they're kind of lumped together. But the second thing is I have wanted to start a podcast for about a year now.
Have you
And
really?
I
Yeah.
have, and I just haven't pulled the trigger. I know exactly what it's going to be. I know the title. I know everything that I'm going to do.
Girl, do
I
it.
know. I just haven't pulled the trigger. And so I really made a commitment that by January 2025, it was going to happen. So
Yeah.
stay tuned for that. Yeah.
Well, that's huge and that's
Mhm.
exciting. No doubt you would be a super success doing that.
Thank
Can I
you.
sign up for your retreat?
Yeah,
Like,
absolutely.
I'm like, I'm in, take my money. What do people need to do? Like, what's your retreat called?
So it's vision to victory, right? So we're taking our
Ooh,
vision, we're going all the way to
love
victory.
that. I
And
like that.
so you can find information on my website. It's JennJohnsonCoaching.com. And also feel free to just reach out to me. Like if there's somebody's like, you're speaking my language right now, just reach out to me.
Oh, I love
And
it.
we
Just
will
send you a
definitely
DM
talk.
or whatever.
Send me a DM. You
Yes.
can email me through my website as well.
That sounds phenomenal.
Yeah.
You touched on two things that I wanted to just circle back to
Mhm.
because I've learned a lot about them lately and they've made a big difference in my life too. So I would consider myself like a recovering perfectionist. I
Yeah.
would do the thing and then I would move on to the next thing and like, meh, yeah, I did it. What's next kind of thing. And I realized lately how important it is from a mind, body, spirit connection to stop
Mhm.
and actually celebrate ourselves. Like
Yes.
you spoke about the celebration, and I wanted to highlight that because, first of all, this was like to me, but I learned that our nervous system needs that. Like,
Yes.
so literally, I mean, it sounds really funny, but I encourage people to do it. I stop and I hug myself throughout the day.
I
Like when
love that.
thank you. I'm like, Yes, it feels good to
Yeah.
acknowledge that like I showed up for myself and I did do the thing, you know? So I think like how can you celebrate yourself after you do accomplish a milestone? Or, you know, are you going to go treat yourself to something? I think it's so important to stop and acknowledge like the tiny victories along the way, because you
Mhm.
said it needs to be like a step by step process. And then I know really successful people check in on where they're at, like you
Mhm.
mentioned, very regularly.
Yeah.
And I think that that is something that's so, it's something I need to work on, but it's so often missed. Is
Mhm.
that people just, they set a goal and they like, you know, dig and scratch and do all the things, but like, do they reevaluate often enough, like if they're there or not?
Right.
More importantly, I love that you said, well, let's double down.
Yeah.
If we are there, then like let's kick this thing up and crush it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think that there's this very fine line between reevaluating and then using it to beat yourself up. So
That's good.
really
You're
being
right.
in tune with that, because we talked, I was talking about this with a few months ago and with a girlfriend, and I said, if I had a goal to, run a 10K, but I couldn't and I only ran a 5K, would I celebrate myself for running the 5K, or would I beat myself up because I didn't run the 10K, right? And
Exactly.
so it's a little bit of both. It's like, okay, celebrating myself because I just ran a 5K and I haven't done it since high school. And that was a long time ago for me. So celebrating myself for that. And why wasn't I ready for the 10K? Was there something that I could have done differently? Did
Yeah.
I not, did I not train long enough? Did I fall off of my routine? Did I not set myself up with a long enough, lead time for it? So it's
Yeah.
not even maybe that I did something wrong. It's, was my goal realistic? And so really just kind of checking in with myself and noticing what what was in the gap between where you ended up and where you wanted to be,
Right.
and using it to move you forward, not to take yourself out, not to beat
Yeah.
yourself up, not
Yeah.
to, use it as ammunition against yourself.
I love you mentioned that because we give up too soon. I don't know where like how it got embedded in us, but I think a lot of people think that like I should have got it right the first time. I mean, it's so
Right.
interesting the way we're wired. It takes me to my daughter. I have a 7-year-old daughter, and she'll get frustrated quite easily and she'll
Yep.
try something, and the very first time she can't
Yes.
do it, she'll throw her pencil. I mean, she
Hmm.
is frustrated with herself. And it made me think like, gosh, how important it is to teach and train that like we get successful by failing, by trying, by like
Right.
doing the things and evaluating like what can I improve and how can I tweak this, and showing back up to like try it again. And so I think um that's such an important point, you know.
Hmm.
I was talking with a girlfriend just a few months ago. I mean, I was in a dark place before I knew all this was going to bring me to where I'm at now. And you know, I'm a makeup artist, but I hadn't really practiced it much because I had stayed at home, and so I was, you know, out of practice, and I had all these negative beliefs like,
Hmm.
oh, I'm not really that great, and like what can
Hmm.
I really offer people? And like, but I'm not as good as this person. And like, yeah, and the truth is, I mean, these people that I'm comparing myself to, which we all know we shouldn't compare anyway, but it's like they've been practicing every day for the
Right.
last 10 years. Meanwhile, I have picked up a brush like 5 times, right?
Right.
So
Right.
it's really sad that we're that hard on ourselves. And the beauty was when I said, well, just for joy's sake, I'm going to pick my brushes back up. So over
Yeah.
the summer, I told my kids, like, I'm going to paint your faces every day, like just for fun, just so I can get back into it again. And it was really cool because you get better each time.
Yep.
Imagine that. Like,
Imagine that.
you really do get better each time. So, yeah, it's just the human journey, the mind, it's so powerful. And
Mm-hmm.
oh my gosh, yeah, we could talk about all the things forever, I'm sure. But I thank you for showing up, and I couldn't be more grateful to spend time with you. And I just feel like it was like really magical, and I appreciate you sharing your heart. And
Thank
um
you.
I think people are like lucky and blessed to be able to work with you. So yeah,
Thank
the
you. And
fabulous
so am
Jenn
I.
Johnson.
I mean,
Yeah,
I'm lucky. I'm lucky that the ladies that I get to work with, and I'm lucky that I get to do this every day.
absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's such an impact. And like, how could you not wake up feeling so grateful and so thankful? I mean, yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely.
How awesome.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Oh my gosh, thank you for listening. If you got something out of this episode, be sure to follow or subscribe to Her Identity Project on your favorite podcast platform. Make sure you're notified about new episodes. Please hit the like, the share buttons, get on social media, spread the word. Please take time to leave me a review. That would mean more to me than you could ever know, and it helps get eyes on this show so that other people can just get all the goodness out of it. If you're loving it, please hit me up in my DMs. I absolutely want to hear your feedback. Thanks again for listening. I'll see you next time.